Wait, what's this about the DCU Batman potentially being John Krasinski? What? So we need to talk about that rumor and how James Gunn has seemed to have gone to his debunking ways again, but not about that particular Wonder Woman rumor. Unfortunately, we still don't have him talking about that. But he's also been teasing some other little tidbits here and there that I really want to get your takes on with regards to the upcoming DCU. We have some more reports regarding what I spoke about not so long ago in terms of a Bane project, but I think it's being somewhat miscommunicated out there amongst fans. Also, I want to talk about Blue Beetle, how well that's faring, and also just let me know if you've seen it down in the comments below. Like this video if you do go on to enjoy it. That really helps me out. Also, check out yesterday's video. I do a discussion series to do with Joker, Folie à Deux. But let's start right at the beginning, and that is this DCU Batman rumor. Man, the DCU Batman rumors are always interesting. From the days of the rumor of George Clooney carrying on in the DC Universe as the DCU Batman, among other things. Now we have another one. This one got a bit of traction, and I spoke about it a bit in a live stream the other day, but I'm still getting people asking me to talk about it. So this user here says, I'm assuming rumors about DCU Batman casting have no truth to them. And James Gunn replied, I don't know what you're talking about, but we don't even have a script. And there's a strike happening, so no casting. And this time, we have Batman on film tweeting out this picture very mysteriously. Now, I think, to be fair to Batman on film, he didn't say hashtag DCU Batman and then put this picture of John Krasinski here. But I think the reason why people are still a bit riled up about Batman on film's post here is because I think what is being perceived is that this is the usual, if a scooper doesn't always say, oh, what I'm hearing is this, sometimes they just simply post a picture. You know, it's kind of like James Gunn just posting a picture of Mr. Terrific like he did months ago, and lo and behold, we've got Eddie Gathegi playing Mr. Terrific in Superman Legacy. So when Batman on film is known for, from what I understand, having somewhat reliable scoops back in the Dark Knight days, but I don't really and can't speak to his reliability these days, posts a picture in where he's known for Batman talk, people are thinking, okay, well, could this be to do with the DCU Batman or the Matt Reeves Batman? But to be fair, like he technically didn't say anything, but like everyone's saying, let's not pretend like we don't know that you're not trying to tease something potentially. So what I will say that is wrong about this is that you had other outlets take this photo being posted saying, well, now reportedly John Krasinski is in talks to play Batman in the DCU. It just gets out of control, and this is the thing that always pisses me off, to be quite frank with you, when it comes to things like this. On the bottom line, this Krasinski picture ambiguously being posted doesn't mean sweet feckle, really, in the grand scheme of things. So James Gunn, and this is something that should have applied to people with common sense anyway, in how there is a writer's strike and an actor's strike. That you wouldn't have someone in talks to play Batman. I suppose maybe someone could argue that this is what they heard before the strikes happened. Maybe there was a general meeting or something. But even then, as Gunn says, they don't even have a script. I mean, you know, I would entertain, just like what Matt Reeves has said before, he kind of wrote the script with Pattinson in mind. So, you know, you could argue if the Krasinski thing was true, maybe they had someone in mind. But it apparently isn't true. I have no idea what Batman on film was doing by just mysteriously posting a picture of John Krasinski like that. You know, with all due respect to him, if he's known for, like, teasing things sometimes, and he does just post something like that without a caption, I don't blame people for interpreting it as potentially teasing something, but what I do disagree with is reports recycling that post as if he has outright said, this is, you know, Krasinski is playing this character or that character. Either way, though, that is the story with that. My thoughts on John Krasinski, we spoke about this, as I said, in my live stream. A lot of people were instantly like, no. But what I have to say about this is that I see where people are coming from. I really do. But there's a part of me that is always taking into account that with, the teenage heartthrob that was Heath Ledger when everyone said no when it came to playing Joker, or believe it or not, the people who, do hashtag make the Batfleck movie nonstop now. Lots of people back then were like, Ben Affleck as Batman though? Like, don't get me started on Robert Pattinson. So for a DCU Batman who, let's just say, started at 25 years old, is potentially 38-ish in the movie, considering that we know he has a Bat family around him, that Grayson could be on the precipice of Nightwing, if not already Nightwing. He's got Damian Wayne coming in. Krasinski is kind of like what I vibe as the right age. He's 43 in real life, but as we know, like, it doesn't really matter. You can still be playing a younger character. Now, again, a lot of people might be like, but I don't know if I can take him seriously. He may be a good actor, but does he have that imposing ability as Batman? The people said the exact same thing about the actors I just mentioned. Heath Ledger, no, he can't be Joker. Pattinson, he's not intimidating. Like, again, so I'm always very careful. I'm a big John Krasinski fan. So if that did actually happen to drop as a news headline one day, don't get me wrong, I would never invalidate anyone being like, oh, I don't know. Even a part of me is like, but I wouldn't say outright no. I really don't think I would. That might be an L take for some of you out there. That's not me saying he would be amazing, but I always caution judging too quickly when it comes to Batman casting, because every time, guys, you know how it goes. It's Superman castings, Batman castings. I would go as far as saying that 65 to 70% of the internet is always against whoever is cast at the time. But that was just for fun anyway, just imagining Krasinski, could he be under the cowl? And, he is an actor. He does have good range. So imagining him as a, year 10 to year 12 Bruce Wayne in the movie with a Damian Wayne that they could be playing a kick-ass hit girl type situation with, that I could almost imagine it. It's just that it's hard to imagine. I agree with you, but just like the previous actors, it's always hard to imagine until you get the actor doing their job, actually with the cinematography of the scene, with the score, with the set, and then you're like, oh shit, maybe I was wrong about that. But if it's an absolute no, you've still thought it through, you still try to be cautious to judging too quickly, who could you see Krasinski as in the future DCU? Now, as for some other little rumors here, that got a bit out of control, and we have Gunn. Again, I do find it fascinating that he did make a post saying he's not really going to reply to things anymore unless it's huge, and he's still not replied to Wonder Woman, yet he's now replying to these things. Now, again, we've spoken about why Wonder Woman, he might not be commenting on that for the kind of public optics of, my word against Gal Gadot's word. It is awkward. So anyway, as for what this user says here, Ben Affleck had a voice, again, this person, from what I'm aware, is very, giving out scoops, which some of you may know down in the comments. Ben Affleck had a voice-only cameo for the Blue Beetle movie that was cut by Gunn. Was purely comedic, but it plays Blue Beetle film in the Batfleck continuity. So he's outright stating that. He's not even saying from what I've heard. He's stating it as a fact. Now, Gunn, thank God, said here, I've never heard of a Ben Affleck voice cameo in Blue Beetle, nor has Peter, much less cut one. I've never heard of one because one never existed. Just ask the producers. So not only did he, himself, not know about it, he even asked Peter, just to, double check. Is that actually something that maybe you heard was a thing or was going to happen, but was maybe cut out even before we came in? No. And then he went as far as asking the producers, was there any semblance of Ben Affleck having a voice line? No. So, yeah, no Ben Affleck in Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle is pretty damn standalone, which is why it so easily fits in as a DCU film. Even though it's technically not being embraced as one, there is a reference to Superman, but, yeah, and that's not spoilers, by the way. It's like in one of the promos or something. But you could still technically attribute that to the fact that we know David Corenswet Superman has shown himself to the world, but it's just not like a veteran Superman. He's not too early on, so, yeah, you could give some believability to Jaime Reyes knowing of the Superman when he's referencing that line rather than that of Henry Cavill. So it does work as a DCU movie. It's a bit of a weird, Schrodinger's cat situation. Neither DCEU nor DCU, but technically can be both at the same time. Now, up next is a cool little tidbit, which is something so small, but I like the insight of. We have this user here asking to the whole, Batman, DCU Batman thing that we are talking about earlier. Here's a question I think you're more likely to answer. Have you given any thought to the layout, or the lay of the land in the DCU? Where's the different cities that the heroes operate are on the map? Will they all be right next to each other or spread out across the country like the source material? DC has some great cities with their own identities. I hope we get to see that. And James Gunn replies, we are creating an incredibly detailed world map. And I think that is really, really cool. All this talk about building a new DC universe with this 8 to 10 year plan, heavy emphasis on when he describes it as really cohesive, really world building up throughout the movies. Sure, as I've said before, Superman Legacy sets up this initial exposition, but as we continue on, we're going to get brave and bold. Where, whereabouts is Gotham in comparison to Metropolis? Because sometimes in live action, they've changed that up a little bit. But behind the scenes, they are going super, super detailed. And I think that is really important to do. If you're creating a universe like this, one thing that I think you should do at the most basic conceptual level, and sometimes big movies and universes don't always take this into account. They kind of sometimes do it as they go along, but if from the very foundation, you know exactly where Themyscira is, you know exactly where Central City is, you know exactly where Metropolis is with regards to a comparison to Gotham, how long maybe that could take, and that could actually affect certain movies if you see a character go from here to here, and the time it should take to go from there to another part. Maybe not so much for Superman because he can fly very fast and the Flash can run very fast, but it does create consistency. And sometimes universes or movies aren't always the most consistent with what they've done with their writing before. They kind of chop something out and it's like, oh, but that's not really matching up to what they did there before with regards to location. Yeah, I really like that. I would love to have a detailed world map printed out and framed up on my wall, and I wonder what that looks like. I think James Gunn could give us a little tease and a post of that in the distant future. Now, with the next James Gunn post, we have some intriguing insight into something a lot of fans have been wondering about before, such as the involvement of Chris Pratt or Pom Klementieff. Now, with Pom Klementieff, she's outright said in an interview that she's spoken about a specific character and she needs to be careful, but, she loves the idea of it because it involves more action. But, everyone's been saying, oh yeah, Chris Pratt's definitely going to be in the DCU, but now we've got a little bit of an update on that. So Airy85 says, I would like some from the cast of Guardians of the Galaxy to guest star in the next season of Peacemaker as themselves, like Chris Pratt being himself or Pom herself. Now, the way James Gunn answers this could be interpreted a couple of different ways, but he says, there are reasons I wouldn't want either of those actors to play themselves in the DCU. Is that because you have, other plans for Chris Pratt and Pom Klementieff? I mean, we know that for a fact with Pom Klementieff. So he's kind of like saying there are reasons why I wouldn't want either of those actors to play themselves in the DCU, because maybe I have something in mind for Chris Pratt with regards to this character and where he might have to act somewhat this way, and Pom Klementieff could be in that rumored Korean Huntress movie, which could, involve a lot of action, clearly. So yeah, a minor update, but I think everyone's been kind of vibing for a long time, Pom Klementieff aside, that Chris Pratt would be involved in some way, shape, or form. And a lot of people's easiest first go-to casting their fan casting is Booster Gold. Some people don't want him as Booster Gold because it just seems a bit too on the nose, as some people say. But yeah, let me know what your interpretation is of him saying, there are reasons I wouldn't want either of those actors to play themselves in the DCU. Okay, guys, so up next is an update to this Bane project. And you might be like, what do you mean, this Bane project? So essentially, Angel Manuel Soto, who directed Blue Beetle, wanted to do a Bane project, and we spoke about that in a news roundup not so long ago, but now there's been like another quote with him telling that story again that I think is being taken in a way that somewhat really isn't true, and this is what I mean, like no disrespect here to the Batman Film News Twitter page. According to Blue Beetle director Angel Manuel Soto, Matt Reeves might have plans, some plans for Bane. Now, they did say might have, But I wouldn't even go that far. So Matt Reeves might have some plans for Bane. And then they go to read a little bit of that quote out. And, I'm not saying Bane wouldn't technically be in the Robert Pattinson trilogy, but if that did happen, that would be unrelated to what Angel Manuel Soto is saying here. So let's take a quick look at what he actually said. So during the pandemic, I had a general meeting with DC after the response to Charm City Kings winning at Sundance and then streaming on HBO Max. So I got a call from Galen Weisman, one of the executives at DC, and for a general meeting, you have to be prepared if they ask you what you want to do. And, just to interject there, like a general meeting is one of the most typical things you can do with a studio as an actor or a director. It's where you have a meeting and you kind of flirt with the idea on both sides. Hey, what are you doing here? It's like when Robert Pattinson had a general meeting with Dylan Clark, the producer of The Batman. And there's plenty of other examples, but directors might be like, oh, I want to pitch this. What do you think of this, Warner Brothers? But they might be like, yeah, maybe I'll take you up on that. Or actually, what about this project that we have in mind? That is what a general meeting does, just in case you're not so aware there. So then he carries on to say, and I've always wanted to explore the origin story of Bane. It's super intriguing, especially where he comes from and the different topics that could be explored if we take into consideration that maybe he's the hero of his own story. I completely agree. That'd be a sick kind of Elseworlds Black Label type film, like Joker, if you will. So it was very interesting to be able to talk about situations that have affected the Caribbean and Latin America for centuries through the character of Bane. So I came in with that idea, and this is where people are reading into it. So I came in with that idea, but that was Matt Reeves' universe with the Batman. And I don't know what's going to happen now with this new regime, but that was my main attempt. And Galen was like, okay, that's a good idea, but we wanted to pitch you something. And that's when he introduced the idea of Blue Beetle. And then that's when, the rest is history. He went on to then be like, right, Blue Beetle, get casting for Blue Beetle, and start shooting Blue Beetle. So I don't see how any of that means that Matt Reeves might have some plans for Bane. The way I read that is quite simply Angel Manuel Soto had a general meeting with Warner Brothers, just like what I said in the previous video. He wanted and loved the idea of doing a Bane movie. I think that's sick. That would be really cool, in the same vein, in my mind, of Todd Phillips' Joker, if it's not going to be related to a universe. That is, this was around the time of the pandemic when the Batman wasn't even releasing. This is when they were shooting. It was in development. Nowhere is it mentioned like Matt Reeves was a part of this general meeting. He was probably having an ice cream on the set of the Batman and directing at this point. He has no comprehension of this general meeting probably, but he's just like, hey, he wanted to pitch that, and it's around the time of the Batman at Warner Brothers, with Matt Reeves. So it's just like, let's talk about this in this general meeting. There's nothing really to it. Like, even if you wanted to read into a theory of this, it doesn't really add up. The only sense I can make of what could be interpreted here is that he potentially wanted to make a spin-off movie from the Batman in the Reeves-verse, Batverse, that involved Bane. But again, that wouldn't ever be authorized without Matt Reeves' approval. And so far, even way back then, like when the Batman was being, like, this is when the Batman was being filmed. I don't think, sure, Reeves probably has some idea of an arc throughout the trilogy, as he's mentioned, but they're not going to be thinking about, we're going to do a Bane spinoff. So the way this reads to me, guys, Angel Manuel Soto just wanted to do a Bane project. He knows Todd Phillips has done a Joker movie. Hey, like, Matt Reeves' Batverse is going on right now. Can I maybe do something, And they're like, okay, how about, that's a cool idea, but how about Blue Beetle? And then the rest was history. So, like, this is before Blue Beetle even started casting, let alone filming. This was years ago. I'm not denying that Reeves would ever do Bane, because he could, but it wouldn't be linked to whatever the heck this story is. But one thing I will say about it, and, I don't give too much credence to what the Hollywood Reporter said, because we've heard nothing about it since October. Back in October 2022, we have this from the Hollywood Reporter saying, meanwhile in Gotham City, filmmaker Reeves is currently making his own expansion plans. Reeves is developing a sequel to The Batman, as we all know, etc., etc. But Reeves is plotting more than just the Penguin, right? The filmmaker is meeting with writers and directors to build out movies. Yes, movies, not just series, like the Arkham series, the GCPD series, the Penguin series, focused on Batman's Rogues Gallery, both established and more obscure, with characters ranging from Scarecrow to Clayface to Professor Pig. All of those projects are in the very early stages of gestation. So again, the meeting with Angel Manuel Soto was, like years prior, during the pandemic. This is October 2022, apparently, according to this trade. And, reason why I say apparently, because major trades do get scoops wrong as well, as we've had it proved and debunked by James Gunn before, especially with regards to the Batverse. But apparently they are claiming that he was meeting with writers and directors to build out spin-off movies. And there has been whispers, like a little bit of fanning the flame here with, is Mike Flanagan maybe directing a Clayface movie in the Reeves-verse? But Deadline, as I mentioned earlier, very specifically stated that they couldn't say if it's DCU related or Reeves-verse, Batverse related. So you could argue, if Ángel Manuel Soto, and this was true, still wanted to do Bane, and Reeves was happy to do Bane, and hired another director to still fall in line with his vision of Bane, Reeves' vision, he could kind of do that one day, only if this report is true. But I still have a bit of a hard time believing that, because I can believe an Arkham spin-off show, delving into the, haunted house that is Arkham, as Reeves has said. I can believe the Penguin show. It's bloody happening. But theatrical movies that release alongside the main theatrical movies of Pattinson's trilogy, so you got the Batman Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, but you also have a movie in the cinema called Scarecrow, Professor Pig, Clayface, Bane. I know in your fan goggles you may be like, that's amazing, but then take them off. It's like, we know they wouldn't be Max releases because Zaslav says they don't want to do any more HBO Max releases. Batgirl got cancelled. This is why they made Blue Beetle a theatrical release. So I don't know if they would milk it to that extent. Like the Batman Part 1 comes out, Part 2 comes out, but then there's a spin-off movie called Professor Pig. It just doesn't feel right to me. I don't quite believe it. Now, Max show, Penguin, I believe, but Max movie, Scarecrow, I don't know if I, believe that. It's weird. By the way, just wanted to chuck that in there to make sure I cover every angle. Now, lastly, everyone, I'm a little bit late to this, but I wanted to talk about the global debut of Blue Beetle. So both domestically and internationally, it is raked in $43 million, which I think, given what we heard about the projections, it is kind of doing how it was said it was going to be doing, and maybe then some by a teeny bit. But obviously, the projections from the get-go, they would have loved them to have been a lot higher. Now, The Flash got $55 million, but we know how The Flash has lost Warner Brothers hundreds of millions of dollars. So, what bar am I really comparing it to here? And to give you an idea, this is what I want to know. How well will it fare in the total box office run? So Shazam! Fury of the Gods, as we know, made a total box office run of around $134 million, which is very, very, very bad when you take into account the budget of that movie, the marketing costs on top of that. It's just, it really is. We all know that. Now, Shazam 2's global opening weekend was $65.5 million, and Blue Beetle here is 43. So, me saying this whole time, I just want Blue Beetle to beat the 134 total box office run, because it kind of needs to. Will it even do that? I don't know, because if Shazam made that opening weekend of 65.5 and Blue Beetle is only coming at 43, will it even reach 134 million in its total box office run? Maybe, because this could get a bit more word of mouth. It is being taken by audiences in a much more popular way than Shazam 2. And critics, you compare the scores there, Shazam 2 is a lot less loved than Blue Beetle, even though Blue Beetle is getting less box office. So it could still grow. I'm not saying it's going to have a better second opening weekend than the first one, but what I mean is less of a drop as each weekend goes on. And one thing that's very important to realize, I don't know if this will make a colossal difference, but Blue Beetle isn't opening in China, Japan, or Australia until September 14th. That doesn't mean it's going to make tons and tons and tons of more money, but that's still, a few countries, and I think there's even some more who aren't even seeing the movie. So there's a few $1 million there that could have been added to the global box office, I suppose. Now, Blue Beetle had a reported budget, I believe, of around $104 million, but we don't know the marketing costs on top of that. Now, I know there's a lot of memes saying Warner Brothers didn't even market it, but, realistically, at the end of the day, you still do need to add tens of millions on top of that. Not like 100 mil, like The Flash, of course not, but they would have still spent, quite a few million on top of that 104 that Blue Beetle originally had in its production budget. So 104 plus mysterious amount, that would mean it would lose, money if it didn't at least make well over $200+ million. I keep seeing a lot of people saying it just needs to make 200 mil. No, if you take everything into account, everything, I mean, production, then the marketing on top of that, even if it did somehow make $200 million, you need to then take into account the ticket share cost from that of theaters. It is different per theater, and as the weeks of release unfold, the share of the ticket price between that of Warner Brothers and the cinema is sometimes changed. So all I'm trying to convey, though, is not 100% of the actual price of admission that you buy with your cinema ticket, it doesn't go to Warner Brothers. So you then need to, that's why you often need to 2.5 times roughly the total budget for a movie to then see how much profit it makes. I know I say that all the time, but I see it far too often where people see the production cost of the film, and sure, maybe they might add the marketing into that, and if it meets that number exactly and 1 cent over it, they're like, it's made profit. It's like, no. No. So Blue Beetle, I'm a bit worried about it making Shazam money. I think it could, but even if it does make Shazam Fury of the Gods money, it still wouldn't have made profit, unfortunately. Now, believe it or not, I still think they're going to keep Shalom Ardwania on in the DCU. This might not mean a direct sequel anytime soon, but I do and would low-key still expect him to pop up in supporting roles. Some people were talking about Peacemaker or Booster Gold, that kind of thing, because this movie does have a lot of love, but I think the box office results right now are part of a much larger problem in terms of how every DC movie outside of Joker and the Batman haven't even broke, past $400 million. At least like the past several and more. So yeah, we do need that kind of somewhat soft reset that's happening and a bit of a break, in 2024 up until Joker 2, that is, and hopefully people's appetites would be willing to give the new DCU a chance, but maybe not. Who knows? But that is the end of today's long, rambly news roundup video. So let me know your thoughts on all the stories today, guys. Would really appreciate your support by leaving a like on the video. Consider subscribing if you're into news, reviews, breakdowns, discussion videos on all of your favorite kind of pop culture stuff. But until next time, I really appreciate you watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.